Hello and welcome back to another week of the Reddit League show. We are getting towards the end of the season now, and we are in week 8, or well, with the results of week 8, looking forward to week 9. And today I am joined by Paschtetli. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And unfortunately, still don't have any graphics this week. Complaints to Sotomo. Thank you very much. uh, we'll have to make do with the sheet again, but it's a nice sheet. So, you know,
Thanks, Carb.
thanks, Carp. Now if it would just work a bit better. I'm joking. I'm joking. It's doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll start off with Reddit League next, and well, I mean, we've seen a bit of some surprise performances, I guess. Of course, G Papa is always at the top, but behind that, we see Steiner with his second podium of the season with the second best score, and Boris, who's got his fourth, but hasn't had too much success in recent weeks, coming in third place. What do you think about next in general?
That's a good question. I have not really thought about next because, yeah, it's not even a division. But this
It is a
season,
division. It says it right up
yeah,
there.
sure. Yeah, no, you're right. But it's not really like a Division 5 and 4. It's also handled differently and with
Yeah.
no direct matchups and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So yeah, I haven't really paid attention to it in especially last season when it started. But this season we have some great players in it. Some players that definitely deserve to be in Reddit League, in my opinion at least. Uh, if you're just looking at Secateur, Clemens, and also Steiner, Bombadil, these are some names that I think deserve a spot in Reddit League. I hope they can, if they're not promoted from next, I hope they can at least play the preseason again and get a spot next season. But yeah, G Papa, I'm not sure if he's all that. I don't know. His score seem a bit high and very consistent throughout the whole season, except Lithuania, I believe. Um, which is surprising because I don't think anyone has ever heard of that person. Yeah, which is suspicious to a certain degree. But yeah, we will see how he's gonna do in the last 3 weeks. I hope, of course, that Socator, Clemens, Steiner, Bombadil, those names I mentioned earlier, that those people get some of the spots, some of the 3 spots we have. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I don't quite remember if we mentioned last week, but 3 people will get a guaranteed spot in Division 5 next season. And currently, the race for that third place is incredibly close between Clemens and down to Boris, just a bit over 4,500 points separating the 4 of them. So definitely high stakes for those last 3 games, and some pretty close competition for that. Behind that, pretty much a very big gap, about 40,000 points back to the rest, where quite a few people also just, haven't played every week. And therefore, that gap explained through that. And some just, not quite of the level that would be required to compete for one of those 3 spots. But let's move on to Division 5. And as I scroll down, their results from South America and Division 5B, of course, we start with, as always. And we've had some pretty close games. I mean, one in particular with Trebleha just not even 300 points ahead of Cougars. A bit unfortunate for Cougars, who definitely could have needed those 3 points in the fight against relegation, but just even better for Trebleha, who was also in danger of kind of falling into that zone. And I think other than that, not the most surprising results. Danny Blondes in the sort of top of the table match against Palena with a win there, and Palena getting a bonus point though for a pretty decent score.
Yeah, I think pretty much those who were expected to won their games, which is always nice to see. No big upsets here. Yeah, Palena versus Danny Blondes, definitely top of the table clash. Definitely a match and I was curious to see the result of. Danny Blunt's got the deserved victory there, and I think Polina can be happy with a bonus point there with for her great performance or not great. It's not like 22k of Lachege and Penguin, but very decent result there, and I think 1 point does it justice. Is that the correct way of saying it?
I think it's not a right way of saying it.
Anyway, yeah, Soundbite got the deserved win. Trebly got the deserved win. I think, yeah, Cookers could have needed those points, but as you said, with 13k, definitely not enough. Um, and yeah, Mr. Swiss Snow with the bye week against Lolette. He put up a great performance though, so deserved 3 points, I would say, as well.
Yeah, so let's look over at the standings. And with that, we see Penguin climbing up a bit, now getting dangerously close to the promotion spots, just 2 points behind Polena. And at the other end, you can see Trebly with those 3 points against Cookers, getting a bit of clearance towards the back, and now has 4 points of a gap towards Cephalin. And yeah, Cookers, unfortunately for him, still stays in 11th spot. Still well within reach of getting out of there, but the weeks are slowly getting less and less, and there's just 3 more games to go.
It really depends on the matchups of Cookers, if they manage to get out of those spots. But yeah, it's definitely a tough task. On the top of the table, Mr. Swissno, Danny Blondes, Polena are pretty solid up there, I would say. Of course, Penguin is getting close, as he said, but I would still say that those three have had a great season so far and definitely deserve to be up there. Mr. Swissno with 8 weeks, 8 wins, a great season. Is definitely a dangerous opponent for next season's Division 4, I would say. Of course, there are still 3 weeks left, but
Yeah,
yeah, I still think he deserves a spot up in Division 4 or higher. We'll see how it does there. Yeah, not much movement overall. This South America didn't change much here.
yeah, Mr. Swissner now 5 points ahead of Polena in 3 weeks, and with the better total score, which means that he need to lose 6 points against Polena in those remaining 3 weeks, which seems unlikely, definitely possible, but would require him to lose at least 2 of the remaining 3 games, and as he has not lost all season, probably a pretty safe bet for one of those 2 automatic promotion spots. Let's take a look at their games for next week. And just a little bit looking forward as well, I just want to quickly check. Soundbite, Lagege, and Danny Blondes are the 3 remaining people who have a bye week to go. So also looking pretty good for Danny Blondes. But yeah, Soundbite in this week, can't complain about that. We'll probably keep him pretty solidly in mid-table, which I think is sort of a result that he would be quite all right with. For the rest of the games, some very interesting matchups. Probably all of them, almost all of them at least. Corgi Cephalin, very important matchup in the relegation fight with, I think it's 9th against 10th.
Yes.
Very important there. If Cephalin manages to win, he's suddenly out of the relegation playoff spots there. However, if he loses to Corgi, then it's going to put him in a much more difficult position. Yeah, Mr. Swiss Snow against Polena, of course. With a win here, Mr. Swiss Snow would, I think, guarantee his automatic promotion spot, because he'd then be at least 7 points ahead of whoever third would be. So barring any perfect games, that would mean he has made it. And Danny Blondes as well, pretty difficult game against Anonono. As we've said before, he's got that bye week coming up in, I think, week 11. So he's relatively clear, but I think a win here for him as well would almost guarantee his promotion spot.
Yeah, I agree. The match against Arnono is rank 2 versus rank 5. Definitely a match he would like to win. And I think South Africa is a map he might be okay with. I'm not too sure about his skills, but I'm confident. No, I think Lolette would have been the only African player.
Yes, I
I'm
think
not sure.
so.
So that would have been the geographically closest person to South Africa. But
Well, actually,
unfortunately,
I just remembered Shumi as well.
oh right,
But
yeah, no,
yeah,
you're
it's
right.
always difficult to say with, online stuff. You never know if they really are from there or
Sure,
if they
sure,
just
sure,
claim
sure.
to be. But
It's a nice flag, so a nice
yes.
flag to have. But anyway, yeah, Corgi versus Zethlin, as you mentioned, a very high stakes game, and yeah, Polena versus Swiss Snow, also a high table clash. I would say that Mr. Swiss Snow has to be the favorite there, but if Polena manages to win against Mr. Swiss Snow, uh, they are definitely a person to consider for at least the second place in the standings for or the second promotion spot, direct promotion spot. But yeah, with Danny Blunt's bye week, it's gonna be a tough task.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a must-win game for Polena if they want any sort of shot at getting one of those two spots. If they lose, then that's pretty much it, I think. Yeah, other than that, Treblinka Lajej kind of sort of mid-table game there could be interesting as well. I don't think it will have a massive influence on the outcome of the division. I think Lajej is solidly upper midfield at the moment with a pretty small chance of getting towards the promotion spots, and Treblinka is kind of the similar but reverse with a solidly lower midfield spot with a very low chance of getting towards the relegation spots. So should
Yeah,
be a
seventh,
should be a
seventh versus eighth.
pretty standard game. And I think if Treblinka manages to win, then both of them will just be doomed to the midfield, which can be a positive thing. But I think neither of them will have anything to do with promotion or relegation in that case. If Lajej wins, then very low chances of promotion battle, but maybe Treblinka could be in danger of some relegation shenanigans down there if that comes to pass. And then, yeah, of course, we've got Penguin against Cougars as well. Kind of a pretty clear implications there. If Penguin wins, he stays in the promotion fight. If Cougars wins, he can get a little bit of leeway or a little bit of a buffer and maybe fight out of that relegation spot there. But let's move over to the other side of Division 5, Division 5A, where we did see some slightly surprising results there, actually. Picatost, a fantastic score there, 23.3k, almost 6,000 points above Biquet, which, kind of a bit of a surprising result. Would have definitely seen Biquet as the at least slight favorite there. Other than that, Mr. Fish losing to Upfloxseed by a similarly big margin, also a bit of a surprise. And Keith, with his first victory of the season against Paranoid Android, also not what you may have expected coming into it, and with a pretty good score as well. I mean, Paranoid Android definitely not an amazing score himself, but Keith with 19k, definitely solid performance.
Yeah, considering the seed, definitely. Yeah, it seems like there was a split. There were a couple people that got to on the road and a couple people that didn't. Because we have a couple people with 23k and a couple people with about 18k. Yeah, both Swiss guys. Am I blind? Where is Clemu? Ah, down
At
there.
the
Yeah, no,
bottom.
Clemu, Clemu won, which is puts a smile in my face. No, but Mr. Fish losing unfortunately against Upfloxseed. I think a German. Yeah,
Yep.
a German. So probably a German-speaking derby. Probably, you never know with Switzerland. But yeah, Mr. Fish thinks can stay up in the promotion spots, and Clemu moves a bit closer to it. Definitely a very needed victory for Clemu there. Horty on the other side losing with not very great performance with about 14k. Is dangerously close to the relegation spots now.
Yeah, so
Could have definitely needed that victory.
let's look at the
Yeah.
standings and see what you're talking about. And yeah, it is very close in the midfield here still. From second and Mr. Fish to 10th in Paranoid Android, just 5 points separate all of them, especially with Mr. Fish and Greasy both losing their games this week. And a lot of the people behind them winning, that puts everything even closer together. And Jack is kind of a bit clear at the top there. He's got 7 points to Greasy and Upfloxeed in third and fourth. So it seems very unlikely that he wouldn't be securing one of those two automatic promotion spots. But the second one is still heavily contested. Yeah, pretty much anyone could secure one of those. Strossel and Keith a bit further down in 11th and 12th. They've got 5 and 6 points to Paranoid Android respectively. So likely not going to be able to manage to stay in Division 5 this season. But they've both showed some pretty good performances, I think. So we'll have to see if they, continue in the next preseason and about how they'll do there. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting 3 weeks to come looking at this table.
Yeah, incredibly close. As you can see as well, the arrows are wild. Not just single arrows, they're double arrows. That means there were at least two, I think, two spots of
Yep.
movement. So yeah, that just shows how incredibly close the midfield is. Anything possible with a great last 3 weeks, maybe over Christmas. They practiced a lot and are gonna nail South Africa and maybe also the last two maps of, I think, UAE and a remote world.
Yep.
So maybe we will see some great performances in the last 3 weeks, some surprising upsets as well, and some people like Hordy or Damir who might be able to jump up a couple spots, maybe even reach promotions zone. Well, who knows?
Yeah. And let's look at who they'll be playing in week 9. And for Jack, with Sprorsel, a relatively easy matchup, perhaps, to secure that automatic promotion spot. And yeah, also Keith against Hordy is probably the game that Hordy needs at the moment, although maybe with Keith's recent form of winning last week, maybe not the game he needs. Either way, it's probably a game he'd very much like to win. Apart from that, yeah, of course, with the table being as close as it is, a lot of very important games here between people relatively close in the table. Of course, Damir, Picatost, Mr. Fish, Biquet, Apoloxid, Klemu, all games between people who are still fighting for those promotion or at the same time against those relegation spots. I guess Greasy and Paranoid Android kind of the most opposite in that, I suppose, with I think Greasy is in third or fourth and Paranoid in
Third.
10th. Yeah,
Yeah.
so kind of at the top and at the bottom of that big pile of people. But yeah, if Paranoid wins that, then again, everything just becomes closer and closer.
Yeah, that would definitely be fascinating if Paranoid would get this victory. Also, would of course be that if every one of those people just draws, um, and no bonus points. No, that's not possible. But I don't know. A 25k. If the seed is that easy that everybody can 25k, we might see. Yeah, that would be kind of cool to see. But I think that's not possible with the map. We're gonna talk about that later, though.
Mm.
Yeah, Clemu Upflux seed is definitely a match that stands out to me. I think I would favor Clemu because of obvious reasons.
He's Swiss.
No, yes, no, but I think it's definitely a match I'm very curious to see the result of. Clem has the higher total score, but Upfloxid is slightly higher in the table with 2 more wins. So yeah, I think it's gonna go either way. I wouldn't be surprised if either person wins. Um, so yeah, that's all I have to say.
All right, well, then we'll move on to Division 4 then. And Division 4B is where we'll start with that. Unfortunately, drew me a yellow card there, which means a very easy victory for Mikpiet. And overall, seems like at least a much easier seed than the Division 5 seed, with pretty much everyone scoring above 21k. Still, none of the games particularly close. I guess the random, scheduling meaning well there with the people. No one getting a very unfortunate loss there. Pretty much, the five best scores with the wins there. And I think there's nothing particularly surprising there. I think Jake against Sheldon was the only matchup going into it where you could have said it's, pretty 50-50 on who would be winning there. I think everything else pretty standard procedure.
I gotta say, Jake versus Sheldon was definitely also the match I was most curious about in this division, despite my own, of course. But yeah, Jake definitely needed that victory. I'm not sure. I don't think it's enough to get him back into yeah, possibly a promotion spot. But yeah, he definitely needed that victory, also for his morale. As well as I needed that victory against John Harrison. Definitely an opponent I had to beat if I wanted to stay up in the promotion spots. Um, then, yeah, Solar also happy with his victory against Laban Greb, who I think still didn't win a single match this season. So yeah, definitely a must win for Solar. Seppo versus Oli was also kind of interesting. Because they're both kind of upper table, kind of close to promotion spots, but or were at least before this week. Now, Oli has the edge with his victory. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's look at the outcome of that 40 table. And yeah, it's still pretty close, but it's mostly just, we're now getting into the divisions, well, with Division 4 and later on Division 1 that are in their last week, essentially, to come. And that means just one more game. That means just 3 more points, unless anyone actually manages the magical task of getting a perfect score in South Africa. That probably means that it will be decided between the current top three on who will get that automatic promotion spot and who will be playing in the promotion playoffs. And Mikpiet and Jake do still have the possibility of getting towards that third place with a normal victory without any bonus points for a perfect score. Nick Piet's chance is a little bit better. He only needs to get 3 points, and for Ollie to not get any points. Jake would also, on top of that, need Mick Piet to not pick up 3 points and would need to make up a almost 6,000 points gap in terms of total score to Ollie, which is not impossible, but seems pretty difficult to do. On the other side, down to 7th, everyone's safe from relegation at this point. Again, bar any perfect scores. And it does seem like Jean Erison and Dromi will be in the relegation playoff games. So the only thing they'll be deciding is who will be playing against who from Division 4A. And Laban Greb, unfortunately, will be relegated to Division 5.
Yeah, Laban didn't have the greatest of seasons this time. He's significantly, thank you. Yeah, has significantly fewer points than Dromi. But surprisingly, his total score is up there. I mean, with 107, no, yeah, 170,000 points. It's he definitely is mid-table, but he got very unlucky with matchups apparently, because yeah, he didn't get the points in those weeks he scored well.
Yeah, I think it can.
That's unfortunate.
I think it can also sometimes be a bit deceiving because if you don't score super high but decently high, and sort of the weeks where everyone's getting like 24, 23K,
Mm.
and you get your 21Ks there, then it's not going to have a big negative impact on your total score. But obviously, you wouldn't say, okay, he deserved any points there. He still might have finished like, 10th or 9th in his division. And if you then sort of get your average kind of scores like a 15, 16K in a week where some others may be getting like 10K, and then just have one or two lucky matchups or unlucky matchups, I mean, then you can quickly kind of have like a good total score, but not necessarily have just been unlucky. I think a better estimation would be like looking at sort of the average position week by week of where his score would have finished,
Yeah,
um, which might be something interesting
yeah.
for statistics. But yeah, obviously, a little bit unlucky for sure that at least with the people who have a comparable score, because no yellow cards in Jean Erison and Seppo, he does have a higher total score than them. So to really, I mean, there's the thing of maybe he doesn't deserve to be above them based on whatever, but to be 10 points behind Seppo, for example, is definitely a little bit unlucky. But yeah, maybe he's gonna have some better luck next season. And for now, we'll be looking at their games for next week to see if maybe he can at least finish off with one win this season. And I mean, he is up against Seppo, who, as we've established, has a lower total score than him. So, well, I mean, why not start at least, or like end the season at least on a positive note?
Also, Seppo has nothing to lose, as we established. Seppo isn't in danger for relegation spots and might not practice at all. So yeah, Laban has, I think, a fair shot at at this game. Um, Definitely would be great to end the season with a victory. Then, of course, the elephant in the room, or on the screen rather, Solar versus myself. Top of the table clash, we are both on 19 points. Solar has the slightly higher total score of about 6,000 points more than myself. So yeah, I definitely need a victory here if I want that promotion spot, that direct promotion spot. Solar, on the other hand, would be happy. No, I think if we had a draw and Oli had a win, that would put Oli above us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if we certainly both needed a victory. And yeah, I will hope that I of course already played. I always play early, and my score is enough. Mick Pete versus Ollie is also interesting because it's I think third versus fourth. I think so.
Yep.
And yeah, Ollie definitely needs a victory if he wants a chance at the first place. Mick Pete also wants a victory if he wants a promotion spot at all. Then Dromi versus Sheldon is also interesting to keep it going. Yeah, no, Dromi is no, it's not actually that interesting. I I correct myself because yeah, Dromi is not able to get out of the relegation zone, and Sheldon I don't think is able to change his position by much. So yeah, I don't think, because it's the last week, I don't think they will practice much, and I don't expect high scores, especially in a hard country like South Africa. And Jake also needs a victory against Jean Hérisson, yeah, if he wants a chance at the promotion spot, which is mathematically, theoretically still possible.
Yes, theoretically still possible, but very unlikely at this stage, as you would need Mick Piet to win against Ollie, because otherwise, it's not mathematically possible anymore. And he would also need Ollie to not get a bonus point, and then he would need to make up about an 11,000 point deficit to Mick Piet in terms of total score with his win against John Son, and that is just probably not going to happen. Um, but you can dream. Maybe a perfect score.
Maybe.
That's the only thing keeping his hopes alive at this stage, I think. But yeah, unfortunately, seems unlikely at this point. But yeah, Mick Piet against Ollie is definitely also, as you said, a very interesting matchup. Mick Piet himself just needs a win against Ollie. If Ollie gets no bonus points there, then that does bring him into third place ahead of Ollie. If Ollie just gets one bonus point, then he's fine and will just take that third place very likely. And yeah, of course, you against Solar Sensei will most likely be deciding whoever finishes in that first place, unless you have a relatively low scoring draw, then Ollie's suddenly in the picture again. Let's move over to Division 4A now. And we have some pretty interesting results again. I think most of them were relatively expected. Another pretty great performance from Sepkiers, who's kind of been doing pretty well in the second half of the season. I don't think he's going to have much of a chance at promotion anymore, but he's going to at least stay clear of the relegation zone. And Wakelock just kind of continues to win every game.
He didn't have he didn't have the greatest score, also compared to all of the Division 4 players. 23k isn't. I think it's about average. No, I think it's slightly below average actually, but it's all he needed to win against Hedekmi, who has definitely the lowest score of all of Division 4. Might be slightly lucky, but he's also been doing, yeah, great or good enough actually, for for to make it possible to win. Um, Lunacy definitely a deserved victory with I think the highest score of all of Division 4,
Mhm.
against 21k of Danny. I think it was kind of expected. Danny has not been performing very well this season. Um, Definitely expected victory for Lunacy. Sepkirs, as you mentioned, a very solid score again, as well as Hexold, who definitely wanted to win against Sotomo, and also Carb against Sander. A bit low scoring for of both of them. I think I would have expected a bit more, considering the seed. But yeah, I also know that Carb is in Morocco these days. I'm not sure how much time he has for practice and of how good of internet quality he can get in a hotel. So yeah, that definitely makes sense that his score is slightly lower, but he's happy to win against Sander, who has had a great season so far.
Yeah, so looking at the table, you can see that for Xander, especially, a very crucial loss, I suppose, putting him down from third to fifth place. Um, Again, like kind of in the middle of the table, pretty close here, from Carp in third down to, well, likely Sepp Kirst in sixth. Everyone's still with a shot at that promotion playoff spot, at least. Um, at the top, Hexalt has guaranteed his playoff spot, at least. Of course, with a win in the last week, he could secure that automatic promotion spot. Wakelock in second, pretty secure in that promotion playoff spot. It would take both Carp and Lunacy securing a win on the last day, as well as Wakelock losing his game and not getting any bonus points, for him to fall out of there. And behind that, we technically still have Heyemine with a chance to somehow make it to third, although it is very unlikely at this stage. And he would be better, better suited to worry about not falling down into the relegation playoff zone, where Zotomo and Erikmi currently are residing. They can, at least Zotomo can, with a win on the last game, they make his way out of there. Still, Erikmi a bit further down there. He would pretty much need a perfect score in South Africa. I think otherwise it's not really happening, as his total score is quite a bit lower than Heyemine as well in seventh place. And Danny, unfortunately, same situation as Laban Greb in Division 4B, is already guaranteed to be relegated.
Yeah, the Americans are all very close together up there. The um, first half of the division. I would definitely not have expected Wakelock to be in the upper table, even considering his last season. Um, but yeah, he is doing great, and has almost his playoff spot confirmed. But yeah, Lunacy, Carb, and Sander are, and Zepkirch, of course, are still able to snack away the third place, if that is a word. I don't know. But yeah, I of course hope that my teammates, the ones mentioned before, are able to get as many promotion spots as possible. Of course, I wouldn't mind if from my perspective, if I actually would end up in a playoff spot if I had Wakelock in there as well and against myself. I think that would be a slightly easier matchup. It also kind of is seed and map dependent, of course, but I would gladly take that.
Yeah, so let's take a look at who they'll be playing against next week. And well, we talked about for Wakelok to lose out on his promotion spot, he would need both Carp and Lunacy to win. And well, I mean, Carp against Totoma is definitely a game that is winnable, but Lunacy against Exalt is a little bit more on the tough side.
Yeah, I think it's a in raw skill. I think it's a pretty equal matchup. Lunacy is a great moving player, and I think Hexalt as well. Both are had a pretty good season, so it would be a kind of an upset if Lunacy won, I guess, considering the standings, but also considering the stakes of the match. I wouldn't be surprised if Lunacy put in that practice and Hexalt didn't practice at all because his promotion spot is confirmed. That Lunacy manages to get those 3 points. Yeah, Herjemina versus Sander, a mid-table match, also interesting. I would favor Sander though, definitely. And I think Sepp Kiers, with his performance in the last couple of weeks, as also as mentioned, is definitely a rough opponent for Wakelog and can definitely make things interesting. And Headache Me versus Danny to end things off for Division 4A is a bottom of the division matchup, and I think Headache Me is the better player there, so I don't think we will see a surprise.
Yeah, it's not the most impactful game. Danny already in 10th confirmed. Heading me can get up to 8th, but the only thing that would do is change his opponent for the relegation playoff game. And with Dromi and who was the other one, Jean Erison being very close so far in the table, I don't think it matters too much who of the two you get as your opponent. Obviously, opinions may differ on that. You were kind of a bit quick there on confirming Hexalt's promotion, automatic promotion
Oops.
spots. He
Oh yeah,
can
you're right.
still, you know, if Wakelok wins against Sepkirs and Hexalt loses his game against Lunacy, then we suddenly got Wakelok in the automatic promotion spot. That would be quite the story. But yeah, obviously, you know, Sepkirs probably this at least the slight favorite there against Wakelok, and you know, with Hexalt you'd think that even if he would lose against Lunacy, there's a pretty good chance he'll pick up a bonus point or something like that. But yeah, let's move on then to Division 3 and Week 8 for them. And I think overall, maybe the biggest surprise there would be Steel this Nick winning against Diesel, who didn't really have the best of games. I think overall, looking at the scores there, the Division 3 seed probably the most difficult one out of all of them, as we don't really see any scores above 21,000 points.
Yeah, it was a rough one. I don't quite remember it, probably because I didn't do great. And, I just don't want to think about it anymore. No, but yeah, Diesel, if I remember correctly, is still at the top of the table, but still Snake got way closer with his victory. With the victory in their direct match up. Flipster with the deserved and yeah, quite big difference in score. A victory there, definitely also deserved. Nakiro, Nakiro winning against Hugo with is it the yeah, it is the highest score of
Yeah.
the division. And also Pastek winning against Paulinho, I think was also kind of expected. And yeah, well done.
Yeah, a bit unfortunate for Hugo there with a pretty good score, getting a bonus point, but not getting any victory over Nakiro. And yeah, definitely would have needed those points. Someone who did need those points and also got them for sure, Freckles, finally coming into form towards the end of the season. He'll be very happy that this is a 12-player division and therefore there's still 3 weeks to go at this stage with a very good win over Geofogger there. As we look at the table, it does still keep him in 12th and last spot, but he's now equal to Hugo and just 1 point behind Geofogger, and even just 3 points behind Tante in 8th place. So definitely still possible to climb out of those relegation spots for basically anyone down there. Then there's a bit of a gap towards sort of the mid-table. Nakuro in seventh, still also in with a shout at the promotion spots. There's just 3 points up to Flipster in fourth. And yeah, even at the top, it's very close. Diesel just 1 point ahead of Steal the Snick, who's 1 point ahead of Closed, who is 1 point ahead of Flipster. So with 3 weeks to go, there's nothing decided in Division 3.
Yeah, definitely close. I think Diesel and I think the top five, no, four. Yeah, I think 4 or 5 is very close. Also considering the raw skill of the players. I could definitely imagine Pastak also sneaking in to those promotion spots. I don't think this Paulinho, Nakiro, and Tante I don't think they will climb much. Of course it's possible to see surprises, but I would be surprised. Um, always like surprises in the standings. That's something I'm very fond of. But yeah, I also very much like that Diesel and Flipster, my good friends and teammates, are up there, and I hope they will continue their great season.
Yeah, Nakaro actually with the second highest total score as well is worth mentioning on 170,000 points, just about 800 points behind Diesel. So maybe also a bit unlucky so far this season. But yeah, 3 weeks to go. Let's see what the first of those 3 weeks will entail. And I think we've got some interesting games for sure. Again, Steal the Snake against Pastek, the first one there. Kind of a very important matchup for both of them. Obviously, Steal the Snake with a win, kind of securing not 100% yet, but pretty likely going to be securing his spot in the top four. And he did also end up, I think he ended third place in Division 3 last season and then ended up losing the promotion playoff game. So I'm sure he'd prefer one of the top two spots instead this time to sort of not have to go through that playoff again. Whereas for Pastek, a win here would close the gap down to those promotion playoff spots and would put him right in there again. Apart from that, we've got a lot of mid-table matchups closed against Nakiro. Similar situation there, where the winner would make some way towards those promotion spots. Loser probably falling a bit further back. And then at the bottom of the table, also some interesting stuff. Freckles against Antoine Pilot, definitely a crucial game for both of them. Antoine not really having the best performances as of late, and Freckles with the exact opposite of that, coming into his own and showing up with some really good scores. Maybe his chance to finally get out of that last place.
Yeah, definitely would be deserved for Freckles to win that match. Flipster has a must win, I would say, with his great performance. I practiced a couple games with Flipster and we did quite well there. Of course, he carried me a little. He is the better player, I would say, but so I think he has a good chance at winning this game. Diesel also has to win his game if he wants to stay up in those promotions spots. And yeah, as you mentioned, still the Snake versus Pastek high stakes match.
So let's continue on to Division 2 and their results for this week. And yeah, for this one, I don't think there was that much room for a lot of surprises. I think most of the games were fairly even. However, Bootbot with a fantastic score, highest of the division, I think highest of the seed as well in total, with a great game, winning against Verdok, who does pick up a bonus point. And other than that, maybe Stock losing out against Cameron, a little bit of a surprise. Cameron has been coming to some better results recently in recent weeks. Probably too late to really make a challenge towards some promotion spots, but at least going to be able to finish off the season well.
Always nice to see if someone makes a comeback. Yeah, Bootbot, that also stood out to me. had a great score on a relatively rough seed again. That's what I'm saying because I didn't do great. Um, of course, there were some high scores, for example, Putbad. So yeah, Wardog quite unlucky there, but he picks up a bonus point. Then yeah, Guilo also winning, which is all. I think he's also a bit like how did you call it? Had a better second half of the season
Yeah.
than his first half. Um, and Max is struggling, I would say, a bit more, I think, than in the first half. I might be wrong here. I don't quite
I
remember,
think
to be
Max
honest.
has struggled just throughout this season so far.
Okay,
He's
yeah.
he's not had the best of performances, especially compared to some of his recent seasons. I think it's his third season in Division Two, although I might be wrong. It might be his second. Um, but so far, he's always shown to sort of be just outside of those promotion spots, fighting for them. Not quite getting there in the end, but still definitely sort of upper half of the table. And this season, he's really been struggling to get any points on the table at all.
Yeah, always a shame to see. I think he has a couple of victories though, so that's cool. Also, Orboka wouldn't have minded to play against basically anyone else of his division. Um, yeah, unfortunately, his opponent was a red carded player, so yeah, he could have just scored 10k. It wouldn't have mattered. Renata, on the other hand, had a more average score and is, I think, happier that her opponent was a red carded player.
Yeah, of course, with total score being the first tiebreaker, could very well come
Yeah,
into
yeah,
play.
yeah,
We
sure.
see that in Division 4 with Jake, for example, with his relatively lower total score being a big deal breaker at the end of the season in a promotion fight that would be otherwise possible. As we look at the standings and see Ordboka definitely in that sort of range where total score might play a big role. So definitely worth it to still try your best even in off weeks otherwise. And we do have Renata with that free victory, obviously against a red carded opponent, running away a bit with Verdok's loss against Bootbart, now 4 points ahead. 3 weeks to go though, so nothing secure there. 7 points towards fifth place, so at least a position in the top four seems pretty likely. Behind that, of course, very close Bootbart with that victory. Now just 3 points behind Stock in fourth. And I may have done Max a little bit of an injustice there. He's actually further ahead than I thought he was. Just 1 point ahead of ninth, but it's not a big gap to the people ahead of him. Yeah, as you said, maybe it was just then a bit of a streak of bad results recently that made it seem that way. Also, of course, with two red carded players, it's always a possibility that he just has those two games out of his way. I don't know that for sure at the moment. So we'll have to take another quick look at that in a second to see who is still getting some free points their way. And with Guelo,
Yeah,
yeah, go on.
I also want to say something. um, yeah, as you said, with two red carded players, there's still much room for shake-ups. Of course, it's also a 12-player division, so we still have a couple of weeks left. But also, yeah, Renata and Orboka are both players that have already played now for a couple of seasons. I think Renata with two, and Orboka is a kind of a veteran, I would say. I didn't ever think of them as a Division 1 material, but apparently they slowly grinded their way up, and yeah, I'm curious to see if they are gonna be promoted, and if so, how they will do in Division 1.
Yeah, I mean, Renata, it's her second season and she was in the promotion playoff spots last season. But yeah, Orboka, I think, if I'm not misremembering, which I definitely might be, I think he's been here since season two, and has started out in Division 4, if I'm not mistaken. So he's been here a while, has kind of seemed like last season kind of hit a bit of a limit at the top, where he was struggling after being promoted to Division 2 and just kind of trying his best to avoid the relegation spots. But it seems like that is now done with, and he's finding his way towards Division One potentially. Also, looking at his total score, not just a matter of luck or anything like that. Second highest of the division, just behind Verdok. And yeah, looking at the bottom there, of course, with two red card players and a maximum of two relegation spots from Division 2. Of course, no one is in any danger there anymore. Just WTF with his 10th place at the moment. He's quite far behind anyone above him. So we'll have to see if he, really puts much effort into the last few weeks. Might be nice just to, get some confidence back, but also, I guess, can't be blamed for, maybe not giving it his all anymore, considering the rest of the season doesn't really matter much to him. I just hope that he has one of the red card matchups to go still, because it would be quite sad otherwise, because that would mean he had no legit wins. But we'll, I mean, I guess it's still a legit win, but you know what I mean. We'll take a look at the fixtures. I want to quickly take a look who still has. Well, we got there. WTF. There we go. His red matchup against Aston is still to come. Verdok against Armand this week. And just quick look at the next. Samo, Max are the other two players who still have their red card games to go, and then the two red cards against each other in the last week. So yeah, looking at this week, I think Stock against Renato, probably the most interesting game there, with first against fourth, I think. Yeah, if Stock wins, gonna be bringing those top four much closer again. If he loses, then suddenly his position is in danger, as Bubat and Max playing against each other will probably bring forth a winner who will then close that gap down fairly quickly. Also, kind of last chance for Cameron and Guelo to maybe make some inroads and maybe get towards those promotion spots. Pretty unlikely at this point. But if they do win their games against Ordwalker and Samo, then there is still a slight chance remaining.
Yeah, I agree with those two matches being very interesting. I would consider them both of those matchups to be quite equal skill. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was an upset, or not an upset, but um, the person lower in the standing winning against the person higher in the standing. But but yeah, Verdok and WTF are definitely happy to get some 3 points, some free 3 points, whatever.
I've been struggling with that for a while, yes.
I know. Yeah, but yeah, yeah, that's basically it. You said everything. I would say.
All right, well, then let us move on to Division 1 and the results for week 8. And thankfully, I did win my game against Nimrith with the second highest score
Way,
of the
congrats.
division. Yay, thank you. Very, very important win there for me. And yeah, other than that, I don't think any of the results were particularly surprising. Baseman against Toto Radio with his win, both kind of low scores. I think 8th and 10th best scores of the week. So Baseman will take it, but not the best performance there, perhaps. Shumi with a pretty important win against Mason, also kind of making that relegation zone pretty interesting. And other than that, yeah, Barry with another win. Pretty good for him in the promotion race. Same for, well, promotion, playoff fight. And yeah, same for Bastel with a fantastic score. Very close to a 25k there. Winning against Pluki, who decent score, but not quite enough.
Yeah, with only 1 week to go again in Division 1, that's definitely very interesting to see that Barry and yeah, that the Barry versus Mr. Blue match, both are playoff material, both are in the playoff spots currently, and Barry had the higher score there and will take this victory quite happily. He definitely had a great season, and I also want to quickly mention that he had a great Reddit League career so far. I remember when he started in season 3 with myself together in Division 4. I haven't been promoted ever since, and he has been promoted in every season so far, and is now looking at a very glamorous playoff spot. and I think it's one of the favorites to win actually the Reddit League this season. So yeah, that's definitely a very cool career. Bastel is happy about his victory, and Pluki is kind of unfortunate, picks up a bonus point there. 23k is still a pretty solid performance.
Yep. So let's look at the table. And you can see there at the top, currently Barry with his 19 points, pretty much guaranteed playoff spot for him. He's 3 points ahead of Bastel, Mr. Blue, and Pluki, who follow behind him. And they'll be mostly fighting against Basement, trying to come up from behind to maybe snag away one of those spots. And behind that is there's kind of like there's just a 2 point gap, so not the biggest of gaps, but that's kind of the split off where it goes from fighting for playoffs to fighting against the relegation spots. And yeah, from my situation is relatively interesting there. I will be playing, we'll slightly move ahead there and talk a little bit about the fixtures while still looking at this screen because it's important. I will be playing against Mason, and Shumi will be playing against Totoradio. So basically, if I lose my game and Shumi wins against Totoradio, which, you know, he's African, it's South Africa, and Totoradio hasn't been having the most amazing of seasons, definitely a possibility, could put me back into 8th place. Whereas obviously if I win, then that likely means Mason ending up in the relegation playoffs with Nimriv, who I don't actually know who he's playing against, but he could, with a win, potentially still make it to that 7th place as well. Obviously, yeah, with that, if I do end up in the relegation playoff spots, then that means my guaranteed opponent would be Nimrif, which would be a very interesting relegation playoff for me. Good friend of mine, but not really who I'd want to go up against in a best of 3. But yeah, could be some cool matchups. As we'll take a quick look at those games. Nimrif will actually be playing against Bastel in that last week. And the other 2 games, Mr. Blue against M the Basement, the Dutch Derby. Also a very interesting one. Definitely winner of that game is guaranteed in the playoff spots. Of course, if Basement wins, Mr. Blue still has a small chance of making it regardless, as, you know, Bastel or Pluki could fall behind him. Pluki against Barry, of course, same situation here. Winner is guaranteed a playoff spot. And if Pluki wins, then both of them are likely in. And yeah, very interesting last week for sure here as well, with some matches between players very close together in the table.
Yeah, I would say this might be one of the most interesting and genuinely very high stakes weeks of all of this season. There isn't a single match I'm curious to see the result of, or I'm not curious to see the
Yeah.
result of. That's the way I meant to say it. You also forgot to mention, I believe, that mathematically, in theory, you are still able to make the not the
Technically,
promotion,
yes.
the playoffs, because you are just 3 points short of 16, and with only 1,000 points in score difference to Pluki, in total score, difference to Pluki. That's still technically possible. You just need a couple games to go your way, as well as yours, of course. Which with your opponent, I think you are slightly the favorite here, but yeah, we've had a couple rough Division 1 seats. Tolimpala has definitely uh, tried his best to
Make our
create a
lives
good
miserable.
challenge. Yeah, that's it. In other words, yeah. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what happens.
Yeah, I think Mason is, for me in this division, probably the opponent I have the most trouble like estimating, I guess, like what
Yeah.
he's gonna do, because obviously he's a newcomer for this season, so I haven't really seen him play that much, and I just, you know, don't know whether he's gonna score like 25k or 10k. Could be either. I have no idea. So that makes it a bit more difficult for me to really say whether, you know, I'd be the favorite, he'd be the favorite. I mean, looking at the table, we're fairly close together. quick look back there. Total score as well. We're separated by about 500 points there as well. So just a very close matchup in general, I suppose. All right, then let us finish this off by talking about the map. A balanced South Africa, over 50,000 locations spread out across all of South Africa. And yeah, what do you think about that map?
You tried your best to only choose on 25 cable maps this season.
It seems
Um,
that way.
yeah, that's one of the things I didn't like the most uh, of about this season, basically. But yeah, I always like to see those 25Ks, even if it's not by me. I still didn't manage to 25K anything, but I really hoped that this would be the season for me. Quick spoilers: I didn't 25K my South Africa seed. Um, so yeah, that's a shame, and not even has nobody 25. Is it very hard to 25K this map? Um, nobody has nobody has even 25K it with unlimited time. That just speaks for the country because it's very it has a has it has a lot of these long straight roads. You do see these kilometer markers, and if you take a look at them, you'll see that there is the road number on them and a section, and you can learn those sections. I did for some at least, which always helps you to narrow down the region you can be in if you don't manage to find those nice green beautiful signs that tell you everything you need to know.
I, th-
um
I think that's just
yeah,
national roads, though, right? Not
no,
the
no, 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 that
R
it's
roads
on
as well.
yes,
Okay, interesting.
not all are roads, but I've seen them on uh, uh, basically any road that has a number.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely very helpful to learn. If you have the time and if you want to. Also, it's not a very urban map, as that's also kind of a theme this season. Um, very rural heavy. That means learning area codes is kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. They would be quite helpful in South Africa if it's more of a 50-50 rural and urban locations map, I would say. But yeah, you are definitely um, basically with practicing a couple of seeds and learning about the regions, which are kind of guessable, you have a good chance of getting 20K plus here, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
Also,
Oh, go on.
one last
Yep,
thing.
sure.
I've looked at the polls. That's a kind of unreddit league thing to do, I know, but there are some differences in provinces. They at least Western Cape and Eastern Cape have very distinct polls. I think it's kind of worth it to at least look at them. Yeah,
All right. Definitely don't think looking at area codes is a waste of time. They are very useful, and especially in rounds where you might not be getting much information at all, the chance of finding a phone number at least is not that low. They can definitely help you between scoring like 2K and maybe like 4K in a or like between 200 points and maybe like 3 4K in some rounds. As you pointed out, landscapes are, at least in some areas, quite easy to learn or to tell the difference. Obviously, some other areas look fairly homogeneous. I think the whole western part of the country, if once you go north of the mountains in the south, all kind of looks very similar from like around maybe a bit west of Bloemfontein to basically the
I
west
disagree. I
coast.
just want to say I disagree, but yeah, go on.
Okay. Well, I disagree with you then. um, but yeah, obviously, it might be a good idea to just be be able to familiarize yourself with where the road numbers generally lie. Obviously, the road numbering system isn't very ordered or convenient, but you do have similar numbers come together in similar places most of the time. So Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar to Japan, I think, in its road system, where you can notice some trends, but it's not like a very nicely laid out. Okay, this road number is here, so the next one is gonna be here automatically. Um, yeah, I think other than that, I think probably unless you get a really easy seed landscape, is gonna be pretty crucial to at least get through those rounds where you might not get a lot of information.
Also, one last thing, there is one specific Google car. It has a camouflage, green camouflage on it, very visible. It is located in the, how's it called, national park on the east side of the country. I always forget the
Kruger?
name. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, I've seen that a couple times in practice, so it might be worth it to check it out on Google Maps.
Yeah. All right. Then thank you everyone for watching our Reddit League show this week. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys again next time. Till then, bye.
Bye bye.